In this video, we're going to look at a question from Ludwig Nobel on how we can render out a diffuse without shadow pass and a shadow pass using a mental ray architectural material, and then with the purpose of compositing back together. So to give an example here, I have just the couch from the interior, both the modeling and rendering course. So if we wanted to render this out, we can see that I have a red material applied to it. I'm just going to hop into the hyperstage so we can see I have this architectural material that is applied to the couch here. And it's important to note that I am using the MIA material that supports passes. The only thing I've done to it then is just to switch the color to a red color. Now if we want to set up passes here, I've actually set up another render layer that's going to be called my color pass, although that could be confusing, so I'm just going to call that my color layer. Okay. Now let's come into the render settings. Let's go ahead and set up our render passes. Okay, now right now I have a bunch of different passes that are already applied here. I'm just going to go ahead and clear these out so we can see that I'm just creating the default diffuse without shadows as well as a default shadow pass. Okay, so I'll create those and associate those with my color render layer. Now all we have to do is come in and batch render our scene out. And while this batch renders, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video. Alright, our render has completed, so I'm going to open up Explorer here. And we can take a look at the passes that have been rendered out. Now, the master beauty is always going to be rendered out, but we're going to want to focus on the diffuse with no shadow and the shadow pass. So to look at these, I'm going to open up Photoshop. Let's go ahead and bring in our shadow pass, as well as our diffuse with no shadow. We can see we're getting a little bit of a different look because our normal architectural material is very reflective and the diffuse doesn't carry any of that over. So if we wanted to keep that, we'd want to use like a specular or a reflectivity pass as well. Now in this case, the shadow pass by default is just going to be an RGB channel, red, green, and blue. It doesn't include any alpha. Well, that's really no problem because we can, since it's just a black and white map, in any compositor that we use, we can actually go ahead and just say copy this entire layer, and I'm going to come in, create a new black solid, create a layer mask, and then in the channels we can just hit Control V to paste that layer in. So it's essentially what it's doing is it's creating our shadow map as an alpha for this particular layer. Now the actual process, if you're using a node-based compositor like Nuke or Composite, it's going to be a little bit different, but the technique is the same. Basically, you're just going to be connecting the RGB channel into the alpha of a black solid or whatever color you wanted your shadow to be. So that's just a quick look at a way that we can use the mental ray architectural material with the passes in order to render out a diffuse pass without shadows, and then a shadow pass, and then composite those back together.